Hi, I'm Chris Lonsberry. Thank you for joining me. Today I want to talk about the EOS R from Canon. Hey, thank you for being here. Again, I want to talk about the EOS R from Canon, and I want to talk a little bit about why I bought it and how it's been for me. Now, this isn't a technical review by any means. This is just my opinion as somebody who's been using it for almost a month. I was shooting with the crop sensor 77D, and I recently saw a wedding get shot, and they didn't do a great job. So while I never wanted to be a wedding photographer, and still really don't want to be a wedding photographer, I want to learn how. I want to be able to take great pictures if the situation comes up where somebody asks me to shoot a wedding. You know, for most people, that's a once-in-a-lifetime day, and you can't afford to screw it up. Now, in this particular wedding, one of the problems was low light. Now, there was really no reason this photographer couldn't have used a flash. Sometimes there are restrictions on flash, but in this particular wedding, there wasn't. And I also saw that they were using older crop sensor cameras. And half the time, they were using a kit lens, which doesn't have a really great sensitivity to light. Now, even if I'm not shooting weddings, I run into a lot of issues sometimes when I'm shooting in low light. I shoot concerts, I shoot low light situations. And it's really hard, even on the 77D, to keep the noise level down. To get any kind of decent image, you have to turn the ISO setting way up, which introduces noise. And at some point, it's a very noisy picture. Now, that may be fine for social media, but if you're submitting to a magazine or someplace that's going to look really closely at the pictures, maybe you're getting prints, all that noise is no bueno. Now, I already have really good glass from Tamron. I've got the Tamron 24 to 70 millimeter G2 f2.8. I've got the 70 to 200 millimeter 2.8, and I love both of those lenses. But the lenses alone are only part of the problem. So while I'm not a gear hound, and I don't want to go out and buy gear just because it's new, I had to upgrade the 77D to a full frame sensor. When I was shopping, I had three options. One was the 6D Mark II, which didn't necessarily get really good reviews. There was a big issue with dynamic range. For most shooters, it would probably be fine, but sometimes I get in those situations where I want the most out of my camera. Now, the nice thing about the 6D Mark II is it was relatively cheap. The other option was the 5D Mark IV, pro-level camera, tried and tested. It is a great camera. Unfortunately, it was rather pricey for me, and it lacked a few features that I really liked. One of the things I use a lot that the EOS R has is the articulated screen. A lot of times I'll get down low and shoot and want to see through the screen what I'm getting, or maybe even up high, and I can get it up there, tilt the screen, and still see my photo. That was important to me. And when I mentioned my options to my wife, even she said, "Oh, you use that a lot." So I really wanted to have that. The 5D Mark IV does not have that. The other thing that was really important to me was great wireless connectivity. I don't do it a lot, but sometimes it's really convenient to be able to take the picture right off of your camera and put it right into your phone. And I really enjoy having that option. Not to mention the fact that the 5D Mark IV is getting a little longer in the tooth. I have no reason to expect it, but I kind of expect a 5D Mark V or whatever the next revolution is going to be. I expect that fairly soon. Again, that's not a Canon rumor. I don't have any reason to believe that. It's just my sense of things. The other option I had was the EOS R. Price-wise, it sat right between those two cameras. And I really do think that mirrorless is the way of the future. I think eventually, DSLRs are going to become like film cameras. They'll still be around. People will still be using them, but they'll be a little less prevalent. So I really like the idea of it being a mirrorless camera. For me, it was a gamble because I've never used one. I didn't rent it to check it out ahead of time. I just rolled the dice. The other advantage too is if my plan is to shoot weddings, I really like the opportunity to shoot silently and have no shutter sound. I was shooting as a guest at a wedding, and I had the camera going off up on the balcony in a time lapse, and I could hear the shutter every 10 seconds or so. For me, because I was listening for it, it was pretty distracting. So for weddings and even wildlife, having a silent shutter is very good. Now, the lenses for the EOS R are still really pricey. So I opted to get the converter ring to convert my EF and EFS lenses to the RF mount. There are three of these that you can get. This is the cheapest one, it's $99. There's another one that has the control ring on it. The new lenses have a control ring where you can set them to control different things, like perhaps your aperture or different aspects of your photo. And you can put that right on a ring on the lens. So there's an adapter that has that control ring. I could still use that functionality if I really wanted it, but money was an issue. They also make another adapter that's got a variable ND filter. Now, if I was going to go for one, that might be the one, because I'm constantly using an ND filter, and that would be very convenient to have it right in the adapter. Ultimately, I think I'd rather get RF lenses, but they're either going to have to come down in price, or somebody like Tamron is going to have to start making them, and then they'll come down in price. Now, I do actually want to rent some from Lens Rentals. I checked them out, and they're pretty cheap to rent for 7 days. And I would love to shoot some of those native lenses. So let's talk about my experience. Again, this isn't a technical review. There's a lot of those out there, and I just want to tell you how I feel about it. I had an event that I needed to shoot a week after this came in, and I wanted to get it in a week early so that I had a chance to get familiarized with it. The menus are pretty similar to what I was used to. There are a lot of new options. I'm not sure how they compare to the 5D Mark IV, but there's a lot of new options for me. But not so many that they stood in my way of just taking the photograph, and that was awesome. I didn't have a huge learning curve. Now, I will admit, and you might get a chuckle out of this, and I'm not the only one who's done it, I was looking for the mirror lockup setting on the camera because I did that on my 77D. Yeah, it's a mirrorless camera. There is no mirror lockup setting. After about 3 minutes, I figured it out. Now, the first photo that I took with it in dim light, I think the ISO was set to like 12,800. It was really pretty nice. I'm sure there are better cameras out there for low light, but compared to my 77D, blew it out of the water. And most of the time, I don't expect to be shooting with the ISO that high. So I was really excited about this camera. I ended up taking it to the event for the weekend and got a chance to shoot it, and it was pretty incredible. On paper, it doesn't have the fastest continuous shoot. If you compare it to some of the more expensive cameras, it's middle of the road. But compared to what I'm used to, it cooked them off. I tell you what, the focus is great on it. I haven't found battery life to really be a problem. Quite honestly, I haven't been counting the number of exposures. Nothing's really stood out as, whoa, that ran out really quickly. One thing I was really nervous about was the EVF. It's got an electronic viewfinder, and the only EVF I've ever used before I really didn't like. This one is super sharp, absolutely love it. I was a little concerned when I looked into it without my glasses on, because I can't wear my glasses when I'm looking through the viewfinder, and everything was blurry, but with an adjustment of the knob, it is tack sharp. Absolutely love it. The viewfinder gives me all the information I need for my shot. It's pretty nice. I really like the display on top that shows me my settings and what mode I'm in. It's a comfortable fit in the hand. It's got a good solid feel to it. I don't really know what the weather resistance is for it, but I tend not to take them out in the rain much anyways. I try to avoid that just because they're too expensive for me. I can't get them wet, not if I can help it. So overall, I am super happy with it. I love this camera. This is the best camera I've ever owned. It blows away both my 77D and my old 5D Mark IIs. Obviously, they're old cameras. So what don't I like about it? Okay, the things I don't like about it are pretty minimal, and I'm learning to work around them, and they're really not a problem. This little slide bar that they put on here, I'm not a big fan. I haven't really figured out how it works for me. I mean, I know how it works, but how does it work when I'm out shooting? I haven't really found a good use for it yet. Nothing that's intuitive and quick. I've heard a lot of people say they'd rather have a joystick back. The focus is great. I love the focus. One thing you can do is, as you're taking your shot, you can move your finger around on the screen and change your focus point. I don't use that. I'm just used to shooting on the old camera, and I'm okay with that. One of the challenges I've had is that I found that I'll take my shot or shots, put the camera back down, and sometime later I may bring it back up and my focus point is somewhere else. So I don't know if I'm hitting the screen at some point and changing where the focus is. I've actually taken to just flipping the screen around when I'm out shooting. I can get to pretty much everything in there that I need to without having the touch screen. Another problem that I found so far is with the screen closed, if I'm not using the touch screen, I can change the ISO, simple enough. I can change the shutter speed very simply. I haven't figured out how to change the f-stop, and that may have been a function that I could put on the control ring, but I don't have a control ring, so I'm relegated to using the touch screen for that. It's really simple. It's a minor thing. I'm not going to let it stop me, but it is something I've run into. And quite honestly, there may be a way to change that with the buttons. I just haven't found it yet. So that was kind of a minor thing. Other than that, I don't have anything bad to say about this camera. I absolutely love it. There are things I wish it did have, like 120 frames per second in HD mode. It doesn't have that. 60. I can live with 60. I'll make it work. If I need 120, I'll use my cell phone. The 4K, I believe, is still cropped. You might have to check, you'll have to check the specs for that, but I don't shoot in 4K anyways. I want it to have it as an option, so that was important to me, but I'm not a stickler for it. Oh, one final thing that I found that's a problem, at least with the adapter ring, and quite honestly, this is an operator problem. When I take the lens off, I have the tendency to take the lens off the camera. Fair enough, right? No, because then my adapter's not on there anymore. I haven't yet gotten used to taking the lens off the adapter, but like I said, that's an operator problem. I'll figure it out, or I'll buy RF lenses. It'll come. It'll all come. It'll all come in good time. That's the EOS R. I absolutely love it. Now, in relation to the EOS RP that just came out, I'm really happy that I bought this one because this is basically the 5D Mark IV sensor, which just takes great photographs. I really like the features of the camera, a lot of which are missing from the RP. So for the extra $1,000, I'm really glad I went with this one. Also, the RP has the 6D Mark II sensor in it, which is the same sensor that everybody was complaining about. So I haven't seen them side by side. I know a couple people have run tests, but I really didn't want to buy the 6D Mark II, and I really don't want to buy the RP, which brings me back to the R. I'm super happy with it. There is rumor that they'll come out with a professional version of it at some point that, I don't know, what does that rival the 1DX? And that would be one sexy, sexy camera. But it's got to have 120 frames per second. Got to have it, especially if the 1DX already has it. The photos look great to me. Certainly better than what I was shooting. So hopefully that was helpful. I know there aren't a lot of technical specs. If you're looking for that, definitely check out other people's reviews. I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure they're probably going to be out there for a while. I love the camera. I'm very happy with it. Now, I never got a chance to shoot with the 5D Mark IV, so I'm not sure how the two compare, but there are people who have shot with both of those cameras as well. One that comes to mind is Brendan Vanson, and I'll link his channel below. He shoots with both cameras, and I think he's pretty happy with the R as well. Oh, one more thing that I found useful. We were out shooting wildlife, which is not my thing, really ever. But we just wanted to go take pictures of something. I was shooting birds, and I noticed that my autofocus kept grabbing tree limbs so bad that the bird I was trying to shoot wasn't there. I couldn't see him. And I kept thinking, he's disappearing. And initially I thought I wasn't on him, but it occurred to me that, yeah, he's there. He's just so blurred out, he's nearly invisible. I switched over to manual mode and used focus peaking to focus on the bird, and it was significantly easier. And now I kind of dig focus peaking and manual focusing. That's amazing. And I did not have that in the 77D. I don't know if the 5D Mark IV has it, but it wasn't in the 77D. And I love it. Anyways, that's my take on the Canon EOS R. Everybody's going to find something that they don't like with it. Everybody's going to find something that they don't like with everything. But the issues that I've found for me, I can work around and be very happy with it. Now, if we can just get less expensive lenses, although I'm really eager to rent the RF lenses because they look beautiful. So when I do that, I'll bring you a review. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you again for joining me. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.